So, quick clarification on this particular Cecilia Dapaah case. Following your communication or the advice to EOCO, does it mean that the Cecilia Dapaah case is effectively over as we speak?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's important to clarify that nowhere in the advice by the Office of Attorney General where the words baseless and unnecessary use. I do not think that the Attorney General ever stated that the referral by the special prosecutor was unnecessary. So that clearly is your own addition. Now, secondly, it's also important to place on record that the referral was specific. The referral was for the Office of Attorney General to offer legal advice to your Economic and Organized Crimes Office on the question whether indeed it was appropriate for EOCO to conduct investigations into money laundering in the absence of any specific findings of wrongdoing, of criminality, or of unlawful activity made by the Office of Special Prosecutor. Because indeed, you would recall the Special Prosecutor himself had way back on January 24th issued a press statement in which he indicated that he had found no direct and immediate evidence of corruption in the matter relating to the seized funds and frozen bank accounts belonging to Madame Cecilia Dapaah and her husband. So if the Special Prosecutor indeed has come to the clear and definitive conclusion that there was no corruption and there was no direct and immediate evidence of any criminality whatsoever in the matter relating to the seized funds and all, the only basis that a person can proceed on an inquiry into whether money laundering has been committed is whether indeed there is unlawful activity or criminality. So the Special Prosecutor himself has come to the conclusion that there's no wrongdoing, there's no evidence of corruption or of any criminal activity that he himself was seized of. So what other conclusion could the Office of Attorney General have drawn? And I think it's very important to state that money laundering is not a standalone offense. Money laundering is a predicate offense. And indeed, if you look at all the laws of money laundering, it is linked to proceeds that arise out of unlawful activity. So it actually is linked to benefits accruing to a person from the proceeds of unlawful activity. And that unlawful activity has been defined clearly in the Money Laundering Act, Anti-Money Laundering Act, to mean specific offenses in the anti-money laundering law. And therefore, if there is no evidence of any corruption, then what, again, are we investigating the two persons for money laundering for?
I'm curious, Mr. Attorney General, before this particular advice to EOCO, for instance, you talk about no unlawful activity and wrongdoing or corruption for that matter. Was the OSP at any point engaged by your outfit before this advice to EOCO, you'd say?
Again, the advice from the Office of Attorney General indicates clearly that the Special Prosecutor was written to by EOCO in February, asking for further particulars relating to the investigation that he conducted. To date, the Special Prosecutor has not furnished EOCO with any findings or with any report on the investigations. And I think it's also instructive again to remember, in the press release of the Special Prosecutor, he alluded to 7 months of extensive investigations by the OSP and a prior inquiry by the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Mm-hmm. The question the media ought to find out or to ascertain is whether indeed there has been a publication of any report by the Special Prosecutor on the alleged prior inquiry he conducted with the FBI.
The media may be interested in that.
Indeed,
but let me find out. Mm-hmm.
EOCO, for the record, asked the Special Prosecutor to produce a copy of this alleged prior inquiry he had conducted with the FBI. EOCO also asked for a copy of the investigative report on the investigations, the report on the investigations conducted by the Special Prosecutor over the 7-month period. To date, EOCO has not received any report at all.
And the Attorney General is not also curious to find out from the OSP, for instance, because one would think that the AG's office may be a high authority. Have you engaged the OSP to also get that particular report at any point in time? Did that happen?
Are you really addressing the issue? The issue is that EOCO was seized of the matter. Mm-hmm. the special prosecutor referred the investigations to EOCO. EOCO, being properly seized of the matter, wrote to the special prosecutor, making inquiries as to the specific findings, based on which he came to a conclusion that there was a case for money laundering. If EOCO has not obtained an answer from the special prosecutor, what further issue arises? So I think the media ought to be very careful and indeed have to really be conscious of the relevant issues. And that is why I find the manner in which the former president has waded into the issue very much unhelpful to the discourse. And I'm not surprised at all. I think he's just clearly on this very, with all respect to him, very cheap and desperate effort at all. So indeed, if he identifies something, then he wades into it. Oh, I'll fix it.
Well, his aide will join us.
Of law, and okay. I'm saying that this is that part matter actually was dealt with by a special prosecutor. He investigated it for 7 months. He actually, upon the conclusion of his investigations, came out with a statement clearly to the public, indicating that he had found no direct or immediate evidence of corruption in the matter. Apart from that, he released the funds in question that he claimed what ought to be a serious matter of money laundering investigations. He released the money to the woman. That's a matter of record.
So make it clear
and
for us.
I found it a little bit uninformed and totally misleading for one of your guests, Martin Pebu, to say that EOCO had received the money. The money was not given to EOCO. The money was given to Cecilia Dapaah by the special prosecutor. So the money has been returned.
Well, Mr. Godfred, clear this doubt for us, Mr. Godfred Yeboah. Now that you're seized with all the matters before you and then following this advice, is the Cecilia Dapaah scandal effectively over from what you've seen so far, at least from the advice? The Cecilia Dapaah issue. The Cecilia Dapaah issue, is it effectively over?
Okay, so let me address the issue. So as far as I'm concerned, there was a clear report on the investigations by the special prosecutor. And if you look at paragraph 2 of the special prosecutor's press statement, I'll read it again. I'll read it again for the evidence of that. It says, after nearly 7 months of extensive investigations by the OSP and a parallel inquiry by the Federal Bureau of Investigations, FBI, of the United States, no direct and immediate evidence of corruption has been found in the seized funds and frozen bank accounts linked to Ms. Dapaah and her associates. So indeed, the question that you're asking me ought to be asked to the special prosecutor. Has he closed the investigations relating to Cecilia Dapaah? And my understanding from this, for what I read, is that indeed he had come to a definitive conclusion that there was no evidence, and for that matter, the matter was closed.
So that closes the issue of corruption.
He proceeded to release the funds to the woman.
Okay.
If indeed the funds are still a subject of investigations, how come they were released?
Okay, so that closes the issue of corruption, you say. Now, the issue about anti-money laundering, at least
and
from your advice to EOCO, there's nothing there as well.
Money laundering, good. That is why you all ought to take a very careful look at the letter and study it clearly. And if you look at the letter written by the learned Chief State Attorney, you will see clearly she set out the basis for money laundering, and money laundering, not only in Ghana law, but in various jurisdictions, will only arise upon suspicion of the commission of a crime. Indeed, if you look at sections 1, 2, 5, and all the other relevant provisions of the Anti-Money Laundering Act, it is linked with proceeds from an unlawful activity. And I'm saying the unlawful activity has been specifically defined in the Anti-Money Laundering Act to mean offenses that have been committed. And clearly, those offenses are there. So indeed, you cannot just get up and shout money laundering without a basis at all. And that's why I find it very unhelpful to a nation. You cannot just get up and scream, oh, the money is big, and for that matter, it ought to be a site of money laundering. There must be a basis. That is why it is described as a predicate offense, meaning that it's predicated or built on a specific offense. So that is why I found very, very unhelpful again.
Okay. The
failure of the special prosecutor to furnish our outfit as well as the office, the Economic and Organized Crime Office, with a copy of its investigations.
If you were to assess the work of the OSP on Mr. Dami, for the sake of time, please, if you were to assess the work at least done by the OSP when it comes to this particular case, what would be the assessment?
The work?
Yes, done so far in this particular. I'm asking if you were to assess it, what would it be? What would be your conclusion on the work that has been done?
How can I make an evaluation of it?
Okay.
I have not seen the work done by the OSP.
And you are not interested in finding out, at least taking the work that the OSP has done?
Special prosecutor, why has he not made the report of his investigations available to EOCO? Or why has he not made that report public?
Okay. Mr. Godfred Yeboah, we'll leave it here. We're grateful. That's the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Godfred Yeboah. Thankfully, special aide to John Dramani Mahama, Joyce, Bawah, Mogtari, joins us on the line, at least with the statement made by the NDC flag bearer. She joins us on that. Really, for some, at least, you've heard from the Godfred Yeboah, the Attorney General. It's as if it's just cheap politicking at this point, jumping onto anything.
Well, thank you very much. Very, very good evening to all of you. I think that is very rich coming from the Honorable Attorney General. And let me state without any fear of equivocation that this letter is actually scandalous, scandalizing. It literally offends in every way the fight against corruption. It speaks to the fact that Akufo-Addo, Bawumia, and the whole lot of them have absolutely no interest whatsoever in fighting corruption. Indeed, when you are unable to define, to indicate the source of your wealth, the source of money that was found stashed in your bedroom, millions of dollars, millions of cedis of unexplained resources in various properties, homes belonging to a former Minister of State, the Sanitation Minister, Madam Cecilia Dapaah. Indeed, these are the same individuals who in the past literally were screaming from the high horses, shouting about corruption and the fight against sin. Indeed, at the time when Mr. Akufo-Addo swore in, the very first special prosecutor was the Honorable Dami, then not a Deputy Attorney General. Did he not welcome that office? Did he not appreciate the fact that this was an office established by Akufo-Addo to come and fight corruption? Today, it appears as if they are actually literally arguing over themselves about what is corruption, what crimes and what charges should be proffered against this individual. Indeed, I recall that there was a matter of technicality on which the special prosecutor was thrown out of the High Court. He therefore called a press conference and had this very emotional encounter with the press. We all remember. He expressed his deep frustrations with his inability to fully undertake his duties and prosecute crime as he was investigating. I have read this letter from my own classmate, Madame Evelyn Kielsen, and I find it literally very, very surprising. This is no way to fight corruption. So we now have what? Government's own anti-corruption agents and government's own prosecutor-in-chief literally falling over themselves to defend one another in this case of one appointee of government. This tells you that this administration has totally failed.
Okay. Madam Joyce Bawah Mogtari there is special aide to former President John Dramani Mahama, an NDC flag bearer there on wanting to investigate. He says he will reopen this particular case and investigate it. You've been hearing also from Godfred Yeboah, the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, on this particular matter. Very well, we'll get to hear from the anti-corruption crusaders on this particular issue. I'm sure this is not the last we're going to hear of this particular matter. And hopefully in the coming days also, the OSP can give us some answers and give us the whole findings and the report on the FBI case, amongst others, on this particular issue.